our St. Pete colleagues and friends. So let me hear what you did. You already read the text? Yeah, you're up on it. You're ready to go. Man, this is really happening back here. It's like there's like a weird peanut gallery in the back corner there. Okay. So talk to me about this text. What do you see? What stands out to you? What's your thoughts or questions? I know it's not long, but meaningful. It is Jesus after all, so it only takes a little bit. What do you think? Any thoughts or questions you have? Okay. Oh, Noah, you're doing the mic. Is that it?
I'm just curious as to if there's like a different meaning for swearing, like in this passage versus like, I guess the common use of the word, because people say like, oh, I swear I'll do this, or whatever, something like that. So I'm just curious if that's something like if it's referencing something, then kind of what I think it's referencing.
Yeah, I think that oaths or swearing probably has this like heavy connotation, like I swear by God or I swear by heaven, but then it becomes something very ordinary. It becomes something very like every day. Like I swear to God. People say that. People say I swear to God. I swear to God. Or they just say I swear. But of course, in this context, it was not that different from the way we use it, where they would say something like, you would actually call on a deity to witness what you were saying, as if to say, if I'm wrong, if I'm lying, that deity can like strike me down or curse me. So I'm actually calling a third-party witness, like some god or some deity. It's kind of scary. Can we agree? That's kind of scary to do that. So then people started like cutting back a little and saying, well, I swear by my right hand. So maybe a deity won't kill me, but I'll give up my right hand if I'm wrong. Or I swear by Jerusalem, or I swear by the city, or I swear by my own head, or something like that. But in the end, I think it starts to become more like what we do, where we just say, I swear. Right? Or remember when we were kids? When you're kids, what do you do when you're kids? When you really, really mean it, what do? You can pinky swear. I'm not sure why that's binding in any way, but let's pinky swear as if, pinkies are involved. This is serious. Because he pinky sweared. So, or actually, we used to say, I don't know if any of you did, but we used to say, cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye. Did anyone say that? Isn't that sick? That is the sickest oath ever. And that actually comes from a poem written in 1908, a very dark poem written in 1908, Cross My Heart, which is really about like the sign of the cross. Cross my heart, hope to die. So if I'm lying, then I hope I die. Or, possibly a fate worse than death, I will stick a needle in my eyeball. But that's the same thing. It's like somehow calling on greater consequences if I'm not telling the truth. What else? Okay, yeah. Man, don't just sit in the back there. What are you doing? Come on.
Is there a difference between like swearing and promising? Because I feel like whenever people swear, it's like they're trying to convince somebody of something, but whenever they promise, it's like an assurance, even if it is still conditional.
That's a really interesting question, and even the passage just before this is about marriage. So Jesus is talking about people ought to keep their marriage vow. There should be no divorce, is basically the argument he's making. So it's interesting that he would follow that up with this oath thing. So it's as if he's affirming some kind of covenant promise, but maybe, I don't know, coming down hard on them. Is some sort of solemn promise between two people. An oath is, I don't know, it's almost like, and I'll make this argument later, but it's almost like an oath is not just saying, I'm being honest, I want to be honest, right now I'm telling you the truth. But an oath confirms something. It confirms that usually I'm not telling you the truth. Do you understand that? There's negative space in this text. So the positive space is don't make an oath, but part of what Jesus is saying is not that it's wrong to swear an oath or to live by your oaths, but he's saying, man, think of the world that we live in where people have to say this to each other, where people have to say, I swear. I mean, just be honest for a second. When you say that to each other, or when someone says that to you, why are you saying it? Because they don't believe you? Yeah? I mean, if you say, I'm coming to your party this weekend, and a person gives you that look like, what's happening then? They doubt you? And why do they doubt you? Because you never come to the party when you say you're going to come to the party, right? No, totally, I'm totally coming. Yeah. And then what do you say? I swear. I swear. I swear to God. This time I'm coming. I'm really coming this time. I know in the past I didn't do it, but this time I mean it. This time I really mean it. What that swearing presupposes is like a whole history of mistrust. Of like, usually when I talk, I'm lying. But this time, I'm not. And I want you to know that. I want you to know that this one time, I'm actually saying the truth. This one time. We have all these little things we do. Like, we have little, phrases. Like, we'll say to each other, just in the flow of natural conversation. Can I be honest with you? Do you ever say that? Can I be honest with you? Can I be honest? What does that mean? It's almost like we should stop a person when they say, can I be honest with you? Say, whoa, what? No, can I be honest with you? Wait, what? So everything leading up to this moment was you not being honest with me? And everything after this moment is you going back to the protocol, the status quo of, I don't know if you're being honest or not. I don't know if you're lying or not. It's just, but you'll tell me if you're actually being honest because you'll let me know with a little cue, which is, I'm going to be honest. Or to tell you the truth. Can I tell you the truth? Yeah, tell me the truth. Like all the time. You know? Not just this one time, though. We do that. What else? Nope. Nothing? Okay, over here. What happened?
The mic went the wrong way. That's okay.
I called on this guy, though. What happened? That's
He gave it to me. I don't know.
That's rebellious. That's disobedient.
I did have a comment.
It's my son. Okay, go ahead.
One thing I noticed was like the conditions Jesus gives. Do not swear by this or by that because you're really powerless. And when we make these promises that we're unable to keep, it's us overstepping our bounds, and we're maybe bringing our pride that we can actually do something and mean it. And the only one that can really mean what he says and does it all the time is God himself.
But it's not like he's letting us off. The whole Sermon on the Mount is a reflection on the Decalogue. It's a reflection on the Ten Commandments in particular. And part of what's happening here is that Jesus is kind of revisiting these core commandments, these things that every Jew would know. I mean, even you probably know a lot of the Ten Commandments, which is a good idea, by the way. These are like 10 core things that somehow represent the heart of God. But the problem is when people take issues of law or legality, they can live by the letter of the law, but not understand the spirit of it, not understand the heart which is behind it. Jesus begins this text with these words. So actually, just a few verses before this, he says, "Do not think that I've come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." This is what I said before, is the whole theme of the book of Matthew. It's a theme of fulfillment. He goes on, "For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished." So this is about fulfillment. It's about, you've heard the law, you've even remembered what the law said, but you don't understand the fullness of it. And I'm going to do that. So when he talks about divorce, sure, the law allows for divorce in some situations, but he says, you know what, divorce is always a problem. It's always wrong in the heart and mind of God, because it's about a break. And then he talks about reconciliation, and he says, yes, sometimes people have to go their separate ways, but in the kingdom, it ought not to be that way. He says, sure, the law allows sometimes an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, but in the kingdom, we actually accept punishment rather than put retribution on another person. We turn the other cheek. This is an explosion into the fullness of what the law means, of what the heart of God is. And yes, one of the 10 Commandments was do not lie. In fact, this is a kind of conglomeration of don't take the Lord's name in vain and also do not lie. So number 2 and I think number 4. We're putting together 2 core commandments, and he's saying, listen, guys, this is my take on this. Important thing too is that really what Jesus is doing, the Sermon on the Mount is not so much about ethics. I mean, it is ethics. In fact, it's some of the most difficult ethics, content-wise, that human beings have ever written or ever could consider. But in the same way you might think of Christmas, if I say Christmas is a time for getting and giving gifts, have I summed up the heart of Christmas when I say that? No. Is that true? Is that part of what happens at Christmas? Sure. But the fullness of Christmas? Absolutely not. In the same way, if we say that the Sermon on the Mount is ethics, that's part of the gift that Jesus is giving to the human race, is the ethics of the Sermon on the Mount. But it is so much more. It's meant to be so much more than just the gifts that they're opening on Christmas morning. It's the kingdom itself being described. When Jesus takes each of these things, reflects on the Decalogue, each time he does that, he is actually not just prescribing behavior. He is doing that. He's saying, my people ought to do this or ought to live this way. He is prescribing, but more than prescribing something, he's describing something. It is his vision for how the world could be. He is operating, speaking from a waking dream about the world as he sees it, or maybe as he remembers it. How it will become, the world that he will make, the kingdom that he will usher in. It's very, very possible to read this text in sort of a flat way, as if somehow these are just sort of ethical virtues that Jesus is requiring of his people. And that is true. I'm not saying it isn't true. It just isn't enough. It isn't the fullness in the description. Is there a way we're going to be able to fix this from doing that anymore? Do we need to change the channel?
This is a new world that he's describing, a new way of being, of people existing with each other. And he's asking, I think part of what he's doing is asking us, can you see it? This new world, this new kingdom. Not Herod, not Rome, the world he will build, the kingdom he will build. Not so much a prescription of how to act, although it is that. I don't want to let us off the hook. In fact, we claim to be disciples. This is important. Many of us would think of ourselves as disciples of Jesus, and I hope that you do think of yourself that way, because I do think that's a primary way in which he has called us into a relationship with him. And he said himself, why do you call me Lord, Lord? Why do you claim to be my disciples and yet not do what I say? Later, he would give us the command to go and make disciples, and that command is fleshed out by saying, teach them to obey all that I've commanded. This is part of what he's commanded. And I'm going to ask you, are we this kind of honest? Do we create this kind of integrity in the things that we're a part of? Or have we just succumbed or acquiesced to the way that the world is? We all lie. We all operate from a place of mistrust instead of this way, this vision. But if we claim to be his disciples, we must obey him. And not just do it because these are his commands, but because this is a beauty, this vision for love of the possibility of this kind of world, this kind of kingdom. Where covenants like marriage are never broken. Where we give our enemies love instead of retribution. Will we always seek reconciliation when we sense there's a brokenness in our relationships with each other? And we don't stop until we're united again. Where we always tell the truth no matter what. And where light shines in dark places, it's another thing he says in this chapter. And guess what? They're not dark anymore. Are we good on this? Can we do it? It's all yours. Sorry, we don't mind this, do we? We don't have to be perfect here, do we? We can screw up and all that, right? Yeah? Don't. Is it okay? Yeah, clap for mayhem. Chaos. 50-50? I like it.
Okay, how's that? A little better? Let's give it up for Jeremy. Yeah. Cool. There's an interesting series of research that's been done that has to do with morality and light, actual illumination in the room. I find this totally interesting and fascinating. So there's all kinds of morality research that's done where they'll say, you'll do something like you take a math quiz, and you're not expected to get every question right. They're increasing difficulty. The idea is you're supposed to get some wrong. But then often what they'll do in these kind of social science experiments is they'll ask you to, on the honor system, report in how many you got right. So you take a little test that might have 20 questions. You might get 8 right. And then you have to tell, and sometimes there will be incentives, like you get a certain amount of money by how many you get right. Okay, so let's say we'll give you $1 for every question you got right. There are 20 questions, and then you just walk up. You don't have to turn anything in. You just tell us how many did you get right. So you see, it sort of pushes you to cheat. It incentivizes lying or cheating. And what they find, this is so fascinating, it's not just that people cheat, of course they do, and not just that people lie, of course they do. That's not going to be news to you. But what they actually find is that what affects how much people lie or cheat, so let's say you got 8 right, but you'll say, I got 10 right, so they'll give you $10. Even though you really only got 8 right, but they'll never know, and it's just you doing it and you justify in your own mind. But what they discovered is that actually when they drop the lights in the room, when they just make the room dimmer, somehow less lit up, people lie more. They lie more. And if the room is very bright, just turn the lights all the way on, people lie less. We are more honest in a well-lit room. This is kind of a dim room, so there's a lot of shady characters out there right now, I'm sure. I don't even know what you guys are plotting in your hearts toward me. Isn't that fascinating? Simply adding light to a room makes people more moral. It makes them more honest. Now, I want you to think about what Jesus said in the light of that truth, that reality, that replicable reality of science. You see, guys, your integrity, your honesty, your morality, your virtue does not just lift you. It lifts the world around you. It changes the world around you. And the contrary is also true. Our lack of morality, our lack of virtue lowers the light, the illumination in the world around us. And then we shake our fist at this world. Why is it so wicked? It's not darkness's fault that there's darkness. It's light's fault. If there isn't light, it's because the light hasn't been turned on. And it does not take much light to light a room and to make overall the virtue of a place go up. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever had like some truly pagan friends? I mean, like some truly unsaved friends. You know what I'm talking about? These people do not care about anything, and they just do some gnarly stuff. Anybody ever had a group of friends like that? Let's just own it. Maybe you are that person right now. You're that group right now. You're not even sure what you're doing here. That's fine. If you've ever had a group of friends like that, and then you are really trying to follow Jesus, you are really trying to be like, to them, what they would say, a good person. You know that experience? Anybody ever had that experience? And what happens to them when they're around you? What do? They clean it up. Am I right? I'm forever being in situations where I'm with like some truly lost people just doing their own thing. And then I come around, they're like, they're like, oh, my bad, Rev. Nope, I'm sorry. I'm like, I don't have a problem with it. It's fine. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I don't. F it, dang, oh man, I did it again, I'm sorry. People just try to clean it up. There's something that happens to us when virtue enters a space. And the kingdom comes, even in some small way. And I don't think that's a problem. I think that's a good thing. Some of us might think, no, don't do that. You don't have to change your behavior on me. And they don't. I mean, we need to accept people no matter where they're coming from. That's a fact. Jesus was a friend of sinners, so we should be comfortable in the presence and company of sinners. But they should be a little uncomfortable around us. It should. It's like a conscience that they usually don't use. Like some piece of them they don't use. And all of a sudden it's like awakened around us. And that's a good thing. It's a very good thing. As long as there isn't condemnation or judgment attached to that, just let their conscience do what it must do. This is Jesus reflecting on the Decalogue. He's particularly reflecting on the command not to lie. This is part of what I think he's expanding on or fulfilling. And the truth is, we do lie. The basic assumption of our relationships with each other is that we're not honest. And that's why we need these swearing kind of mechanisms to be able to say, well, okay, normally, yeah, you can't expect me to be honest. When a person goes into a courtroom, don't they have to raise their hand and swear that what they're about to say is the truth? Why do they have to do that? In fact, lawyers might even remind them while they're on the stand, hey, I want to remind you what? You're under oath. So just so you don't think this is not like the rest of your life. This is not like where you can just say whatever you want to say or tell lies with impunity. The truth is, here you're supposed to be honest because you said you would be honest. Guys, part of what Jesus is saying is our whole lives are the witness stand. Our whole lives are hand to God. Our whole lives, every word we speak must be under oath. That's why we don't make one oath or say, I'll keep my oaths, because by saying I promise to keep my oaths is saying I don't promise to keep my word in any other situation. Can you see the expansion of the ethics here? The vision of a world like that. Our deeper problem is a problem of trust. I see three possibilities here that he's painting, this picture of the kingdom. The first is of restored trust. The kingdom can be a place, could be a place. We could create a place. We could bring enough light into a place where trust is real again. Where trust isn't always broken. But so much of our relationships with each other are built on this idea of broken trust. Everything is built on the idea of broken trust. If I could get back all the hours of my life, it would be weeks and weeks and weeks of me looking at contracts. Legal contracts. What a horrendous experience that is, But why do we even need contracts? We need contracts because we don't trust each other. Because you say, I can have this building at this price for this long, and how do I know you're going to stick with that? How do I know you're really going to do that? I don't. In fact, I know you won't unless I get you to sign a contract. And what is a contract if not an oath witnessed by the courts? That's all it is. And part of what Jesus is saying is, can you imagine a world where we didn't need contracts with each other? Where if you entered into a relationship with a believer, a follower of Jesus, an authentic follower of Jesus, you wouldn't need a contract because they would do exactly what they said every time, 100 times out of 100. Imagine that. Imagine the time you would get back, if you didn't have to constantly be operating out of mistrust with other people. We are the most litigious society in the history of the world. We love to sue each other. We love contracts and lawyers. And it's all because we don't trust each other. And we shouldn't. Please, don't get me wrong. Get it in writing, you know what I mean? Whatever you're going to do, you got to do that. Because why? Because people aren't trustworthy. You better get it in writing if you want it to have any kind of bearing or standing in the future. But the contract is the modern oath. We swear by the course. And this has replaced integrity. And an oath, I'm afraid, is a poor substitute for true integrity. But trust is broken so often that it becomes our standard operating procedure with each other. We don't expect each other to be honest. We don't expect each other to be trustworthy. And Christians, unfortunately, we've just agreed to this. participate. We assume these are just the rules of the game as it goes. But lies are a tricky thing. Have you ever told a lie? I mean, not recently, because I know you guys are all incredible, virtuous people. You don't lie anymore. But remember when you were a kid and you told lies? Do you remember that? Anybody? Because don't lie right now about that. I mean, that's really, come on. Remember when you told a lie? Were you ever able to tell were you ever able to get away with just the one lie? Don't have like reproduce themselves like they're little rabbits and they just make more lies. You can almost never tell the one lie without needing to tell other lies to support that lie. Am I right? Yeah? Lies give birth to lies. That's what they do. Lies are like chips and salsa. You can never eat just one chip. It's not possible. Nobody in the history of the world, unless it was bad salsa, nobody's ever had one chip, gone in the salsa, ate it, and been like, that's enough for me. I'm totally satisfied by that. That's great. I have to read this to you. Matt Lance put me onto this recently, and I don't think I've laughed this hard to myself in months, possibly my entire life. He introduced me to these sugar-free gummy bears, which are on sale. They're for sale on Amazon. Haribo gummy bears. It's a real thing. It's a real company. Apparently they make gummy bears. And they sell, one in particular, they sell 5-pound bulk order free sugar substitute gummy bears. Now, why anyone would ever buy these, I don't know. They actually have 282 negative reviews. 282 one-star reviews on Amazon. 282 one-star reviews, which is the lowest you can give, and huge long explanations of why it's only getting 1 star. And actually, if you take the time, which I to read through even the 5-star reviews, most of them are saying, these things are so horrible, they're awesome. And I give it 5 stars. Because if you think of it as biochemical warfare, 5 stars. Some of the titles to the reviews were things like intestinal apocalypse. One of them was end times. One guy called them Satan's diarrhea hate bears. It's incredible. I'm just going to read you one woman's review. There's so many of them, and they're so long and detailed, and they tell the story of what these gummy bears do to you if you eat them. First of all, this woman writes, for taste, I would rate them a 5. So good. Soft, true to taste, fruit flavors like the sugary variety. I was a happy camper. But, or should I say but, B-U-T-T. Not long after eating about 20 of these, all hell broke loose. I had a gastrointestinal experience like nothing I've ever imagined. Cramps, sweating, bloating beyond my worst nightmares. I had food poisoning from some bad shellfish, and that was like a skip in the park compared to what was going on inside me. Then came the flatulence. Heavens to Murgatroyd, the sounds, like trumpets calling the demons back from hell. She writes, the stench, like 1,000 rotten corpses vomited. I couldn't stand to stay in one room for fear of succumbing to my own odors. But wait, there's more, she says. What came out of me felt like someone tried to funnel Niagara Falls through a coffee straw. I swear, my sphincter were screaming. I felt like my delicate starfish was gaping maw, projectile vomiting a torrential flood of toxic waste. 100% liquid, flammable liquid, napalm. And then in capital letters, and it went on for hours. Some people, it's funny because some people read the reviews and they don't believe it. They think it's a joke, so they order them and eat them anyway. And then they write a review. Oh my God, I didn't believe it. It's so true. It's the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. One reviewer, this is just a one-line review, which I really like. When does the pooping stop? I can't take it anymore. I'm sorry for anything bad I've ever done in my life. One guy tried to build an immunity to them. So he buys them and he thinks, I'm going to eat one, and then tomorrow I'm going to eat two, and I'm going to see if I can get my body to beat them. And so he gets to day 10, where he eats 10 of them, and he realizes, oh my God, it starts to happen. He gets into cold sweats. He said he felt like he was sweating like mile 19 of a marathon all of a sudden. His legs go stiff. Your whole body like tightens up, and he realized that he started counting. He said there were 55 of these little hell bears inside of me. Working together to come out. One reviewer said, the red one came out whole. Smashing against the side of the bowl. I'm sorry. Do yourself a favor and just read these. Go home, find a quiet place to yourself. Why would anyone eat these things? This is, I know it's a stretch, it's an extreme example, but it makes me think about lies themselves. They're like, you just can't eat one gummy bear. It's never going to happen. Certainly not if it's sugar-free. So you eat a few, you eat a few, you eat a few more, until what? One guy talked about eating 2 pounds of these. And he said he thought he needed to go to the ER. He thought he was going to die. The truth is, the more we lie, the more we allow lies in our lives, they give birth to other lies. They multiply, and they take a toll on us. They take a toll not just on us, but on the world around us. And it's an insidious situation because they feel good on the lips. They taste good on the lips. A lie. It gets you out of that moment, that difficulty. And the truth, I'm not naive. I understand that the truth is difficult sometimes. The truth is inconvenient. It's hard to always try to be honest, to keep your own word. I understand that. Jesus wasn't naive. He understood what he was saying. But there's something that's worse, something that's harder, something that costs us more. And every time we give away our integrity, just a little bit, just one at a time, every time we give away our integrity, we're literally setting this time bomb inside of our soul, inside of our community, inside of our relationships, inside of our family. Each lie, men, when you tell your wife, each lie you tell her, each lie is like a little time bomb that you're setting in your marriage. Each lie, kids, you tell to your parents, each one, the ones you think you got away with, the ones that taste so sweet, each time you tell a lie to your parents, you're setting a little time bomb in that relationship. On the surface, it might seem like Jesus is saying, don't make any promises, don't make any commitments. But of course, it is the exact opposite. He's saying, let every word you say be as strong as a promise, as certain as an oath. Let the world know that for that kind of integrity and that kind of honesty, that there is such a thing as trust. See, it's not just imagining what it is that lies do. We know that, what it is that an accumulation of lies will do to a life. But I want you to imagine what the accumulation of truth and honesty and trust does to a life. What the accumulation over time of a person that sometimes they say the wrong thing, sometimes they say it in the wrong way, but they always seem to tell you what's really from their heart. And what that does is that creates trust. A trust that relationships, a trust that the kingdom can be built upon. That's a foundation that the kingdom can be built upon. Lies multiply and take a toll, but so does truth. And Jesus is asking us to think about it. What if Christians could be trusted? What if his people walked the earth and everyone knew you can always trust them to mediate your conflicts? If you enter into business with them, you can always trust them. Jesus is asking us to imagine if Christians distinguish themselves in this way. If Christians were asked a direct question, they would never lie. Oaths are for people who do not have trust. Oaths take the place of trust. And an oath is a poor substitute for integrity. If the first sort of characteristic of the kingdom that this vision this picture that he's painting is that it would be a place of restored trust, and the second is that it would be offering us the hope of wholeness. I like the word integrity, not because of the way it's used. I often think it's used in the wrong way. But I like the word integrity because integrity means strength. It has a connotation of like, it's almost like a piece of chain mail or something. If that thing has integrity, it means there's no openings, no weak link in the chain. Integrity is about wholeness. It's about a thing being completely whole. Whatever it is what it is. Totally so. Perfectly so. This, I actually think, is the great pursuit of the human heart and the great pursuit of the kingdom. It's not perfection. It's wholeness. It's not to never fail, but it is to fail in the pursuit of love in a way that is consistent with who you are. I don't think it's possible for us to even imagine a world where we do not make mistakes. I know some of us want that. Some of us are perfectionists, and we just think, if only I could not fail, if only I could not mistakes. I don't even think that's a kingdom dream. Instead, what we should wish is, if only I were not broken anymore. If only I were a whole person operating from a whole heart. Sometimes we express this lack of wholeness, this brokenness, or this kind of bifurcated psyche by segmenting our lives, compartmentalizing our lives. This is what we do. We take something like goodness or sacredness or honesty or virtue or love or anything good or anything godly, and we put it in one section of our lives but not another. I want you to think about that. There probably is no greater example of that than this right here. These things we do what we call church. Because people act pious in church, but they aren't pious 7 days a week. But they act pious when they come into church. And I think Jesus is saying that's from the evil one. Because that is not integrity. That is not wholeness. I mean, if you act pious in church but not the rest of the week, if you're kind to a guest who comes into your home but cruel to a stranger on the street, if you treat people who you have a professional relationship differently than you treat people who you live with or who you are in family with, you say, well, that's because it's just business. So when it comes to business, I do things differently. That's from the evil one. This kind of compartmentalization of our morality, of our faith, it's wrong. And it's the way that the evil one gets to us. He says, segment out your virtue over here. So yes, be a compassionate person, but not when you're doing that business deal. In that case, be a shark. Take them down. That's your job. I wouldn't lie to my wife, but I would lie on a sales call. I wouldn't lie to my kids, but I would lie to the government. If who we really are, if the situation determines if we're honest or not, if we're loving or not, if we're compassionate in our charity work, but then over here, like our mission, when we're doing our micro-church, we're this godly, compassionate, beautiful person, but then we go to work, we're this whole other person. Guys, that's not wholeness. That's not a whole life. It's a broken life, a fragmented life, a divided life. And I mean, seriously, who are you? How do you even know who you are? Which person you are? Jesus is inviting us to have a whole life, to be a whole, consistent person. That's what integrity means. And I think it's a beautiful possibility for us. You get to be the same person, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. Sometimes I'm criticized for what I say. Sometimes I say things like diarrhea, or I talk about, things that people appropriate to say in church. And I find that strange. In fact, I find it difficult to deal with sometimes because I know full well that the language I use, those same people use every day of the week. They use it with each other. They're comfortable with it in every setting, but for some reason they're not comfortable with it here. And the reason why they're not comfortable with it here is because this is where we act pious. This is our sacred space. You don't say those things in church. And I think that's from the evil one. The goal of the kingdom life is not to be pious in church and then act however you want outside of church. It is to be the same person no matter where you are, no matter who you're with. And the truth is, this is just how I talk. This is what I think is funny. So I'm sorry. But not sorry. If what I say is not fit for church, it shouldn't be fit for anywhere. We think of church as being somehow sacred, a sacred space. I get that. I believe that. But aren't our living rooms sacred spaces? Are not our cubicles sacred spaces? Is not wherever God is present sacred? And I have to agree with David when he said, "Where can I go from your presence, O Lord? I go to the heights, and lo, you are there. I go to the depths, you are there." You can't hide from God. There are no alleyways to skulk in, to make your backroom deals. Everywhere you are, everywhere you go, He is present. And that's not about judgment, that's about grace. It's about friendship. It's about witnessing your life with you. I don't want to take away from the sacredness of this space. I just want us to agree that all places are sacred if God is present, watching, listening. And part of what Jesus is saying here is that you don't need to call on some deity or some lesser God to bear witness to a promise or an oath, because God is always bearing witness to everything we say. Do I need to watch what I say from up front? You better believe it. You bet. Do I fail in that all the time? Of course I do. But I don't need to watch what I say because we're in church, because God is always wanting to be honored in my speech, no matter where I am. And I ought to watch what I say everywhere. And the person that I am when I go home with my kids or go out to lunch with you has to be the same person that I am when I stand here. All relationships are built on a foundation of trust, and that foundation then builds something else. It builds whole people. People with integrity, people who have whole hearts, people who don't feel two-faced, who don't feel divided or false or hypocritical. Jesus is offering us the grace and the liberation of integrity and wholeness. Now, I need to say something about this because I think we'll get it wrong, and I actually think we do often get it wrong when we think about this word integrity. This is what I want to say. This idea of wholeness or integrity is not about perfection. It's not about saying someone has integrity. It's not the same thing as saying that someone never says or does the wrong thing. Sometimes we think of a person with integrity. That guy has integrity in business. That is, he never fails. He never makes a mistake. He never does the wrong thing. That's not what integrity means. It means that if I fail or if I sin, it just means that I do it in the pursuit of something true and honest and consistent, because we will fail even with integrity. That is possible, so we need to wrap your mind around that. Failure with integrity. Imperfection does not mean a lack of integrity. I'll give you an example. Of course, our last kid now, Skylar, has just taken that big leap into kindergarten. And so Monica, for the first time now, actually has some time where there are no kids at home. That's a first for her. It's been, 20 years now. No baby, no kid at home. So she decided she's going to start substitute teaching at the elementary school that some of our kids go to. And let me tell you, 1 of the things that I love about that is that she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she does. And she is so passionate about what she absolutely hates it. I mean, it's to her, it's kind of like having all those gummy bears inside you or something. It's just terrible. She hates it. Part of the reason why she hates it, to be frank, is that she just does not have like a disciplinarian bone in her body, and you can't let those kids run roughshod over you. I mean, that's just the thing. You go in there, and these kids just take advantage. She had one teacher come in and be like, "Wow, they are really playing you here. They're really." She's like, "I know," but then she tells me like, "Brian, they sit all day, they have rules all day. I just want them to be free, I just want them to be free." I'm like, "They're free. They are loving that time." But then she's also pulling her hair out, going crazy. One day, she told me a story. One day, this little boy who was kind of sitting against the wall, very downcast, very crestfallen, in the back of the room, curled up against the wall. So over all of the class, she calls out to him and says, "What's wrong? Are you okay? What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, my teacher told me I could do this if I needed to, because my dad just died. And if I needed to," she said, "I could come back here and I could just be alone." And Monica wasn't sure when that had happened or what, so she just said, "Oh, honey, I'm sorry. When did that happen? What happened?" He said 2 days ago. I think he was kindergarten, so he's 5 years old. Just 2 days ago, he died in a car accident, he said. He was killed in a car accident. And so he's sad in the back. So Monica thinks to herself, okay, well, the whole class is hearing this exchange, so she says, okay, well, guys, let's encourage him. Let's say something encouraging to him. So she's asking a bunch of 5-year-olds to help with bereavement. This is not a good idea. So she's like, let's say something encouraging to him. So the one little girl raised her hand. She said, I have something to say. She said, okay. She's like, my dog died, and that made me sad. And Monica's like, no. Okay, anyone else? Does anyone else have anything? Another little boy's like, well, my cat died. I'm glad it wasn't my dad. So Monica's like, oh my gosh, pull the plug. Thank you guys, thanks everybody. Well, let's move on from the encouragement. Let's not do that anymore. That's enough encouragement for the day. Worst things you could possibly say to a person in bereavement. You know what that little boy said though? He said, could they keep going? Could we keep encouraging me? He said, I like it. See, the class didn't do it right. It didn't say the right thing. They said the wrong thing. But he was comforted because they had integrity. Those kids comforted him from their heart, from who they really were. As best they knew how, they related to him. They tried to enter into where he was. And he heard that. As wrong as what they said was, he felt the integrity and the honesty of their hearts even through the mistake. People with integrity, whole people, wholehearted people do things wrong. They mess up. They say the wrong thing. They don't show up when they're supposed to. They show up when they shouldn't show up. But somehow it changes the world still because there's integrity in it. There's honesty in it. We can repent. In fact, part of our identity as people of integrity is we admit we fail. That's part of who we are. And so when we fail, we don't have to justify or distance ourselves from our failure or shift blame to someone else. We accept, I did that and I'm sorry and that's wrong. And even that has integrity. Do you see that? Having a view of yourself which says, I let my friends down, I let God down, I let myself down, and I don't need to run away from that truth. That is the truth, and I'm a whole person who can say that. And that's why the words, I'm sorry, are a critical part of who I am as a human being. And a part of every relationship that I'm in, I say to all the people around me, I am sorry. Guys, that doesn't mean you lack integrity. That means you have integrity. And to create a world where you never fail or cannot fail is to set yourself up for the ultimate failure, which is to break yourself into fragments, where you must be good and define yourself as good and perfect in this situation in this way and say, well, I never did that and I wouldn't do that and that's not who I am. And that lacks integrity because you're not really being a whole person. We complain sometimes, Christians, about the moral integrity of the unbelieving world. But guys, don't blame darkness for a lack of light. It doesn't make sense. If we see a lack of integrity or a lack of virtue in the world, that's on us. Because we ought to be the salt and light of the world. We ought to be the people who bring integrity in. If other people lie, we ought not be up in arms. And we don't need to be worrying about what other people should be doing, how they should have integrity, how they should tell the truth, how they should operate a certain way. That in of itself is exactly the opposite of what Jesus is saying. That's compartmentalization, saying all I really have control over is this life. And this one will try as best as possible to be a disciple of Jesus, to obey all that he's commanded, and to see the vision of what those commands lead us to, of the world that they lead us to. Which brings me to my third impression, which is of a changed world. We're talking about the hope of wholeness, the restoration of trust, and ultimately a changed world. I mean, this last line, in fact, Emily can just come up. I'll start to close here. The last line, that this is from the evil one, it just seems so heavy-handed. Like, why would you drop the devil in the middle of this simple ethical lecture? Just tell us you ought to be truthful and be more truthful than other people. I get that. That's the fulfillment of the law. But then he's like, man, when you do these other things, that's the evil one. That's the enemy. And there's some sort of call to resistance here. Some sort of call to be countercultural, and more than that, to be against evil, to stand against the wickedness of this world. Because the vision here is not just for Christians to be truthful so that they can have integrity in themselves when they go to sleep at night, feel good about who they are. It's not even just about right relationship with God or even better relationships with each other. It's about us being light in the world. It's about us changing the fabric of the world around us because we are this way. It is not so small as just your own personal experience of it. It is really about changing the world. We underestimate the power of that. On June 19th, 2008, a woman, Esmond Green, walked into the emergency room waiting room of Kings County Hospital. And there, she was left unattended. She was in distress. But she was left unattended for 24 hours without anyone checking on her or talking to her. Until finally, at the end of that 24-hour period, she convulsed, slumped, fell out of her chair, and went limp on the floor. After that happened, she lay on the floor of a busy emergency room waiting room for 1 hour. Footage from the security cameras revealed that she lay there for an hour. 2 security guards came by to look at her. One of them poked her with his feet to see if she would move. She did not. Two nurses, one of which came and checked her, looked at her, and then walked away. And finally, the last nurse to come, 1 hour later, came and found that she had died. This phenomenon, unfortunately, is not something that only happens once in a while. It's something that happens quite frequently in human society. It's what social scientists call the bystander effect. It's actually what we do is we look around and we see that no one else is doing anything, therefore the right thing to do is nothing. We are bystanders, standers by. We are those that watch a thing happen that we wonder, that can't be good, someone ought to do something, but no one else is doing something, therefore let's do nothing. There is a conspiracy of inaction. The world is full of bystanders. The church is full of bystanders. And we stand by as we watch integrity slip away, not just from ourselves, but from the places that we work, our families, our streets, our classrooms. And we don't do anything because people don't do anything, because it's not what you do. You just watch it happen. This is from the evil one. Jesus is calling his people to engage the world, to be the ones that jump in the fray, that feel not just permission, but who are commanded to act. I read that story, and then I read recently another story just a few months later, November 26th, 2008. Story about a hotel staff, of all things. The Taj Mahal Intercontinental Hotel in Mumbai, India, was actually the target of a terrorist strike in November of 2008 that killed 175 people in 5 different locations. Gunmen were unleashed on these public places, and the Taj Mahal Intercontinental Hotel was one of those locations. But what's unique about this story is that when bullets started to fly, the Taj employees, instead of running or looking out for themselves, which, by the way, that's what you do, can we agree? Shift is over. When bullets start flying, your shift is over. No need to punch out. Can we agree? I mean, most of us would agree with that. Like, hey, I work here, totally. I want to do a good job. Count on me. But if people start shooting at me, I'm off. I'm taking the afternoon off. Can we agree? Not these guys. All of these employees moved quickly and calmly and efficiently into action to protect the guests of the hotel. They drew curtains. They hid guests under tables and in safe places. They separated the men from the women and children, putting the women and children in the safest places and leaving themselves the most exposed. Under fire and under threat of death, they kept the guests calm, hiding them under tables, serving them water and snacks while bullets are flying. One telephone operator alerted Thomas Varghese, who was in another restaurant in the hotel, called him and alerted him what was happening so that he could hide some 50 people in his restaurant. He had them lay down under the tables until finally the next morning he spirited them away down a stairwell, insisting on himself being the last one out of the room, and he was shot and gunned down as the last one and killed at the bottom of that staircase. The general manager, Karambir Singh Khan, directed operations throughout the hotel, even though his wife and 2 children died on the 6th floor in a fire that was started there. He said to his father, Kang refused to give up his post, and he told his father, if the hotel goes down, I will be the last man out. In the chaos, most of the employees were cut off from their superiors, but they all seemed to take independent initiative without direction or permission. Telephone operators stayed at their desks, manning their phones, sitting just a few feet away from terrorists who were firing their weapons. Kitchen staff formed human chains to shield the guests as they were evacuated. Kitchen staff. And it wasn't just a few heroes, it was everyone. Together they spirited away 1,500 guests to safety. 31 people were killed by gunfire that day, 11 of which were hotel employees. Why would they do that? Why? A closer look at this company, which in some ways brings shame to the church, but also draws us closer to the kingdom. Part of the mandate of this company, of the people that worked at the Taj Group, instead of seeing themselves as simply representing themselves, or even as ambassadors for the company, which is not what they were taught, the mindset of the Taj Group was this: look out for the customer, first, last, and always. They were trained for 18 months to be advocates for the customer and given the freedom to do anything within reason that served and cared for their guests. They were free. Make those choices. When anybody else, any of us would assume, this is not my job. It's time to look out for myself. It's every man for himself. They just kept doing what they always did. They took care of their guests. Imagine if we had that kind of integrity. It wouldn't just give us moral peace with God or wholeness in ourselves, but we would be a force for God in the world, in the service of others. Because we know what these hotel employees could not possibly know, did not have, the assurance they did not have, that we are immortal. That we can put ourselves in the line of fire for others. We must. Because we cannot be killed. Because although someone might take our life from us, Jesus will take us right back again to his side. We are immune from danger and death itself. We cannot be bystanders in this world. Of all people, we are the ones that rush in. Bow your heads with me. Lord, if there is something in my life, a hole, a blind spot, a lack of integrity, a lack of wholeness, would you point it out right now? Guys, just give Jesus permission to put his finger on something in your life. We want to be your covenant people, God, who don't need to make oaths because we always tell the truth. We don't cut corners and we don't watch the world do it either. In short, Jesus, we want to be like you. You are everything to us. You are our best friend. You are our example. You are an inspiration. You are Savior. You are God. You are Lord of all things. You are Lord of heaven and earth. The angels bow before you. The heavenly hosts obey your command. Nature, the universe, listens to your words. Every daisy springs up because you command it. The sun comes and goes because you command it. The mountains rise, the valleys fall, the rivers run because you command them. Who are we, God, to resist you? To listen to that other voice, that liar. And to play his game and to play by his rules and to lie and tell lies and to tell ourselves lies about our lies and to say it's okay, it's the way the world is, everyone does it. God, we give up on that failed view of ourselves. We give up on that failed experiment of humanity, and instead we say, God, we embrace you. We want your kingdom to come. We want heaven on earth in and through us. God, start right here. Make me whole today. On the night he was betrayed, Jesus, after he had given thanks, took bread and he blessed it and he broke it. He said, "This is my body, which is broken for you. Eat it to remember me." Likewise, after supper, he took the cup and he said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, shed for the forgiveness of sin." The perfect whole one broke his body, became broken for us, so that we who are broken would be made whole again. That's what this table is. It's a place of wholeness. And when you come this morning, come both to acknowledge your brokenness and to allow him to make you whole. So when you guys are ready, when your hearts are ready, these elements are for you, the body and blood of Jesus.